Okay, here we are. Go Full Amazon, episode
14.
2019, our first episode.
You know, everyone says new year, new you, but I don't think it's going to be a year of new us. I think it's just a year of a better version of us.
Yeah, I think that we're definitely kind of on that path.
Because I like us.
Yeah, it feels good. I like that we've done a couple of really good things this even just the beginning of this like new year. Like we kind of have done some really good setting of intentions and things like that. So just so you know though, we are recording from the infrared sauna at Manic Training here in Wakefield, which is our favorite place in the entire world. And we decided that, you know, the episode that we're doing tonight, we wanted to be like in just a space of like, I don't know, calmness and openness. And there's nothing like that when you're sitting in a room of like 140 degrees.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we sound a little breathy tonight, it's only because we're hot.
Yes.
And sweaty.
And we are hot.
And we're hot, yeah.
It makes our Instagram look much better.
It does. And we're not trying to be like all like, you know, sexy talk or anything like that, you know, but we are hot. The current temperature right now is 138 in the infrared sauna. So, and if you don't know about the infrared sauna, I have to tell you, there's some unbelievable like benefits to it. Tara and I both had the day off today, and I over-exercised. I did a couple of classes, and so my body feels really good right now sitting in this kind of heat. So tonight we wanted to talk about Brene Brown.
Yes.
And who she is and what she's done for us. And we are currently committed to reading her book called Rising Strong. I have actually followed Brene for a couple of years now. You know, I started out with her TED Talk on vulnerability and then have progressed into some of her books. There's The Gift of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong. And then this last one, I can't remember the last one. There's one more out there too.
Leading Greatly.
There's a leading one. So. Yeah, I know she's a leading one. And then I did a course too with her Courage Works program, where I did a course with her. And I just have found her to be someone who is super relatable. She's someone that has put words to emotions and feelings that I don't really kind of ever know how to like
tap into.
Yeah.
And you know, as you know, we always start off with a quote, and so the quote that really got me when I first read Rising Strong was the quote by Theodore Roosevelt, and it's called "The Man in the Arena," and it kind of goes into exactly what I think Jen and I have been going through this past year. So, without further ado, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory or defeat.
Oh my God, I love that quote. So that quote is my screensaver on my computer. And I also, when I went through a bunch of her coursework, I actually got a print of it, and I have it in a frame. Like, you know, so it's in the end of the hallway in my house, like so that, you know, the boys see it every single time that they go into their room.
Yeah.
Because I think it's such a powerful thing. Because it basically says, like, if you're not in here working and getting your work done, like, I'm not interested.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, I love that you introduced me to her, and I actually remember, like, when we first started talking about her, like, we were driving on our way to a competition, and my divorce process had just started, and we were driving up to the competition, and you were like, you need to listen to this woman, Brene Brown, from the Oprah Super Soul, and she was incredible, because it teaches you how to tap into those feelings that we aren't really comfortable dealing with.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm certainly not comfortable being vulnerable, but for the past month and a half, tapping into that has really propelled me forward and brought me to a better place.
Well, and it's so interesting because I think that, like, and again, like, what I loved most about her is that she put simple ideas and simple words into things that I have never been able to articulate. You know, so I was like, when I first started her stuff, I was like, oh my God, that's what I've been feeling. And she made it seem like something that was relatable and non-shaming and, not normal, but definitely never made me feel like, oh, you're crazy
Right.
because you're thinking this. It was more like, no, this is what happens. This happens to all of us. And this is the stuff that you need to do to get to the other side. Because, yeah, we're not naturally born to be like these big, vulnerable, and connected people. But the reality is we all crave that.
Right.
Like, that's
and
all we want.
And most of us are not in the arena. Most of us are acting out in some unhealthy way. Like, I think she mentions that in the chapter, that if you're not dealing with your vulnerability, you're acting out in some way. Like,
Yes.
for me, it was impulsive spending.
Yep.
Or, I don't know.
Mine's attention. Like,
yeah.
I'm always like seeking some sort of like attention.
Right. And
You
it's
know?
not in our best interests. It's distracting us
Yeah.
from like what we really need to deal with at the core.
I love what she talks about. She's always saying that I can tell that, when she's not feeling 100%, or if she's like stuck in some like shame story or something like that, she's like, I go foraging for carbohydrates. She always says, she's like, I'll find myself in the pantry.
Yes, or
and
eating or drinking
Yes,
or
yes,
drugs or whatever.
yes.
Like, everyone's got their thing, gambling. Like, those are all the things that we do outwardly to put that shell up,
Yeah.
or that coat of armor, so that we don't have to deal with the stuff that's really scary to look at.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I want to talk about, if you're okay talking about it, is I really like her concept of the shitty first draft.
Yeah.
So, because I think you and I have learned from each other that we tend to tell ourselves stories
Yeah.
whenever we're going through a bad thing. And I particularly do it like during relationships.
Oh, definitely.
Because you can't read the mind of the other person. And
What does she call this? She calls them confabulations. Like, doesn't
Yes.
she say that? Like,
Yes.
confabulations.
And I
So the
think
word-
you've called them Mad Libs.
Mad Libs, yeah. Like, it's like, go remember that old game Mad Libs where like you fill in the blanks,
Right.
with your own shit,
Right.
Not necessarily the truth, but with your own stuff. And I know for me, like I definitely am a sucker for that when it comes to like relationships, especially like when there's like a man involved in my life,
Yep.
that I'm like have some feelings for. I mean, they could, like, again, we could just be friends, but I kind of have a crush on you, or we could be like full on dating.
Right.
Like, I will make stuff up.
Yes.
I'll make stuff up. I'll make stuff up that, like, you know what I mean? I'm not attractive enough. I'm
Right.
not good. And it's always about me not being good enough.
Right.
So their behavior somehow triggers my, like, feeling of worthiness. When it has fucking nothing to do with me.
Right.
Nothing to do with me whatsoever. It's the craziest thing in the whole world.
Right. And you and I have had these conversations where we have to talk each other off the ledge, because we're like, okay, I haven't, like, this person hasn't texted me in 3 days.
Yes.
That's it. They don't like me.
Yes.
I'm not worthy.
Yes.
Because we're coping with these feelings of insecurity, which you wouldn't think two Amazons who are actually pretty awesome
Yes.
have these feelings, but I think everyone does at some point.
Yeah, and I think she talks about, I think there's a quote that she talked about, of course we're like kind of all over the place, but that's the way we are. But, it says, in the absence of data, which would be truthful information, right? Asking the questions, getting the data, like, we will always make up stories.
Yes.
We'll always make up stories. That's to our natural, like, instinct and, like, who we are,
Right. And I think she says the first step to overcoming that is writing your shitty first draft.
Yes.
Like, actually, like, acknowledging what you're feeling and getting curious about it and
Yeah.
why you're feeling that way. So, for example, I guess for you, it would be like, I need attention.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy of being loved.
Yes.
And you have to explore why do you feel like
Why
that?
do I feel that way?
And,
Right.
Writing your things down.
Yep.
And I actually, that's probably my shitty first draft too, because I often feel like that. Because if I'm not hearing words of affirmation and you're not being direct with me or vulnerable, then I'm like, okay, all right, they don't like me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start pulling away
Yeah.
and pushing people away.
It's been so funny. So, like, I mean, we might go off the rails a little bit here, but, so it's been such a funny, like, the end of 2018 to the beginning of 2019. Like, I mean, just in those couple of weeks, the profound changes in growth that have happened to you, and then also to me. Like, I mean, it is, like, it's so interesting, because you think that here we are, like, we're at great points of our lives, and we're at certain ages that are nice, and, like, you know what I mean? And you're going through the middle of a huge change with your divorce, and, like, and it's so funny because, like, in this time right here, like, some people would think, like, oh my God, like, you should be falling apart and you should be a disaster and all that kind of stuff. And, like, yeah, you've had moments that are difficult in that,
Oh, yeah.
but really through all of it, like, you have been right in the middle of this book.
Oh,
I mean, this
yeah.
book really has been like if you could have a PowerPoint presentation and like a guidepost about how to actually, like, go through what you're going through with your divorce, like, this
Yeah.
is the book to do it with.
Oh, I mean, it's funny, just almost a week ago, like, I can't believe the amount of change that's happened over a week.
Yeah.
Because for the listeners out there, like, I'm not going to give you the gory details, but basically there's a custody battle. And my shitty first draft was, I'm a full-time working mom. I don't deserve to see my child. I'm going to lose my child. I'm never going to see him. Those were all the things I was telling myself.
Yeah.
It was like complete fear.
Yeah.
And last week in church, I just lost it. Like, basically, I think I purged every like tear and like snot I had that entire
I think
sermon.
you cried through the whole service.
I did cry through the whole service. I think I made a lot of people uncomfortable.
You didn't at all. Nobody was
that, I think for me, that was my just like throwing it out there, being vulnerable, and like you saying was awesome. Like being like, it's okay, just cry.
Yeah.
And it was huge. And then having to go through mediation and actually be kind and respectful and all the things that you have taught me to do, because back in the day I would have been a viper and like I would have attacked first instead of choosing kindness just to protect myself. And so you have taught me how to be kind and respectful and polite and stay true to character. And now, like several days later, I'm like, everything's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Like, it's not great right now, but it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
So last week was my face in the arena with blood, sweat, tears, and snot all over me.
Well, and you recognize it. I mean, I think that's that is like the bare bones basics, like example right now of like, you acknowledge your fear, like you acknowledge your feelings, and you're like, okay, so what's going on with me right now? Like what, what's happening? And you were exhausted and you were overwhelmed and you've been holding it together for a really long time. Like you were deserving of a breakdown.
Yeah.
You totally were. And then what happens in those moments is that, I call them all the time, grow or go.
Yeah.
And you were able to like really just be in a place where you could grow from that, and then just get it all out, and then kind of like move forward. And like, Brene talks about like, all those steps, like the reckoning, understanding that, you have these feelings coming up, that you're getting triggered, that you have feelings, like, you know what I mean? And then you get curious about them. Let's talk about it. Like, what's happening? Like, where am I going to go? And you have safe people. The good news is that you've surrounded yourself with safe people that you can have those conversations with, that you're not doing it by yourself.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've learned to do is just be open about, as scary it is, like how I feel.
Yeah.
And that's what I plan to do in future relationships, regardless of what the outcome is.
I know, that still gives me aja. Like, you say that out loud, and I'm like, oh, God.
So, I mean...
I know. It's been... But, we both have had practice like that, And I mean, I've had, in the last, 3 weeks... It was really 1 week. It was actually really 2 days. Like, I had some profound things happen to me as far as, practicing using my voice,
I want
profound.
You to talk, I know. I want you to talk about these, if you're okay talking about them, because they were really brave moments, especially the text you sent me last week.
Yeah. So I had, we always call it like a cheese platter. So, like, in my dating life, I know, it sounds terrible, but in my dating life, I've always had... like the cheese platter. So these are guys that have been on the outskirts, but they provide enough attention where it makes me feel like I'm good for a minute, but they don't ever want to commit and be fully engaged with me, but I still participate in the nonsense. And I'm not sexual with any of them, but there was always attention seeking behaviors with some of them, and so we called the cheese platter. And it was really blocking me from getting probably exactly what I want, but I was holding on to it because it would feel good, for whatever it was, it would just feel good. And so I had one of them, that I hadn't seen physically in maybe a year or something like that, show up and have coffee at my house one morning, showed up at 6 o'clock in the morning and had coffee with me. And we sat and we talked for a long time, and it was fine, just to sit and talk with him. Nothing happened. I didn't, there was no physical or anything like that. And I just sat there, and it was funny because I had probably spent so much of my time with him with rose-colored glasses on. You know what I mean? It was always just because he was so far out of reach that it made it more attractive to me. You know what I mean? Because he was so unavailable that I was you know what I mean? The chase of it. It was just so addictive. That's really what it was. It was a very addictive relationship, and I can see that now. And he was able to he was talking about his life and all that kind of stuff, and and I was so profoundly aware that he never asked about me. You know what I mean? It was all about him. And he's doing something now in his life that is with somebody completely else that we were supposed to do together and stuff. And I was of course when he left, I was sad because I'm oh my God, everything that we were supposed to do together in the the rose-colored glasses plans that we had, he's now doing it with somebody else. And of course I was so I had moments of sadness, but then I was able to really shift it around and be oh, that's not what I want anyway. I was able to somehow get my power back in that.
Did you almost feel a sense of relief?
Yeah.
When?
Yeah.
Like when he left or when he was there? Or...
It wasn't when he left. It wasn't, when he left there was sadness, you know? I mean, there was sadness because, you know, we had done that game so many times. Like, he'd walked out the door so many times.
Yeah.
And so it was, I don't even know when it was. And then I had coffee with the man that I just recently been dating, and I hadn't talked to him. You know, he and I broke up, and I hadn't talked to him for a couple months, and he and I had coffee, 5 hours coffee, and basically, like, it was the same thing. Like, we broke up again. Like, he was basically like, I was like, this guy's not gonna have coffee with me just to like tell me that like nothing's changed. But really, that's what he did. Like, we had coffee, and like nothing had changed, and he still has work to do, and he's not ready. So I was like, okay. So I was like, all right. So of course I had to, like, once I stopped crying, because the shitty first draft I told myself and the ad libs that I filled in was like, here it is again. Like, I'm wonderful. Because this is what I hear from him. You're wonderful. You're amazing. You're the best thing's ever happened to me. You're this incredible woman. But yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, so somehow in me, that goes to like, I'm not good enough.
Right.
I'm not good. Like, immediately that's where I go to. I'm not good enough. So, and once I got to my, you know, once I stopped crying and kind of got over that stuff, because that's just what I do. Like, I'm a crier. You know, I'm emotional. I'm a crier. But I was able to get to the other side of it faster. And I was able to be like, okay, let me bring this to God. Like, let me take some time and bring this to Spirit. And what I realized was that I was like, oh no, God is shaking the cobwebs out of my heart to making room for something better. I mean, it was like the cheese platter was gone. Like, I mean,
you're like shutting doors everywhere. You're just like, boom,
in like
boom,
72 hours, like the cheese platter is like scattered, gone, like completely gone. And it's just it's such a funny thing because, you know, that kind of stuff would have like devastated me. I mean, it would have rocked me, and I would have held on, and I would have seeked validation, and I would have keep going back. I would have begged, like that, all that stuff that I just know I don't want to do anymore.
Right.
I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. And then the last one, like another, I mean, again, like, I don't know what is happening. And then like last week, another guy, you know, from 3 years ago, like, you know, found me on Instagram, like wanted to like go have coffee and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, what is going on? And so, but for him, it was good. Like, I was able to really like say, listen, like, I'm not looking for half-assed anything. And I actually said that to him. I was like, listen, I didn't like how I behaved when I was with you. I didn't like who I was. And I'm not looking to go back there. Yeah. You know, and I don't want half-assed anything.
You know what I like about that text message? You didn't make it about him at all. You made it about how you acted when you were with him. Yes. Which I think there's certain people that when you're with them, they bring out parts of you that aren't very nice and attractive and make you act different. And you have to, like, it's hard to recognize that it's happening. Yeah. Well,
and I was able to see, again, like, I think that pattern for me, like, you know, and he was a long time ago. And so I was able to see, like, how raw in that pattern of, like, the unavailable and how much the unavailable was attracted to me, because really I was unavailable.
Right.
You know, so he was the first one. And then it kind of like, you know, the good news is they each kept getting better in their less of unavailability. So that means I'm getting better in my like lack of ability.
Your shield's coming down
I'm getting more and more vulnerable and available. You know, but so I'm able to see that.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. It was like I sat there and I was like, oh my God. And so for me, my job as of late has just to be quiet. You know, because when you have moments like that and you have things like that happen, like I want to sit in that, you know, in those powerful moments, because I took a lot of power back.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, all right, now let me get right with God. Like, let me get right with myself and with God without the noise.
Yeah. Did it feel powerful to like say exactly what was on your mind without the fear of repercussion?
Yes. Yes, because that has been something that has been really difficult for me to do.
Yeah.
I'm a people pleaser. I'm a healer. You know what I mean? I don't want to tell the guy who I think is really cute and who I have a really good sex with that, like, yeah, this isn't really working for me. I want more. Because I don't want him to leave.
Yeah. I think people like us, that's probably why we end up in the healthcare profession, because we're people pleasers and we want to heal and stuff, but sometimes we're our own like worst enemies.
Yeah.
Because we can't fix ourselves, but now we are.
Now we are. So now, here we are, January, what do you know what the day is? January 14th?
January 14th.
Yeah, and like we're sitting in the sauna, dying.
Yeah.
You know, but I feel like, and it's so funny because again, like all these waves of change, like I feel like, I think we've talked about this before, is that like, thank God we are like actively participating in our journey.
Yeah.
Because those moments wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the Arena quote is all about, and I think what this whole book is about is like basically owning your story. Like I love how she talks about like that, owning your story.
Yeah, and being okay with it.
And being okay with it.
I mean, that was the thing I noticed in mediation, because the old the old Tara would have kind of just given in just to make all the uncomfortable go away. Like, I just would have given in to whatever schedule was put before me just so I could get away from conflict and confrontation, because I hate it. I hate having to face someone. I hate having to have a confrontation with him. Like, I think you and I have had a disagreement once, and it gave me like chest pain.
Yeah.
Because I was like, she can't be mad at me. She's not going to be my friend ever again. Blah, blah. And it's like, really, like, if you and I just talk about it, like, we're good. Usually, like, all the time.
Yeah.
And that day in mediation, just being able to say, this isn't good enough for me. I'm gonna be okay with walking away from this and letting it be in God's hands or the judge's hands or whatever.
Yeah.
That was really powerful for me.
Well, and I think that even in what Brene does, and like in some of the books that we've read and stuff like that, a lot. And I've done this a million times, where I actually take some of her words and I like write them out when I want to ask for what I need. I love how she like always says, like, you know, ask somebody like, hey, can I process something with you? I had some feelings. And it was funny. I did that recently with somebody. And I said, hey, can I process something with you? And he was like, process? I was like, can I run something by you?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting when you like just say, I'm like, hey, like, this is something that I was telling myself, like, you know, and like when you just say, when this happens, I was telling myself this, is this true or not? You know, and it's so nice because you're not attacking somebody.
Right.
You're just saying like, hey, in this situation, like, this is what happened and this is the way it made me feel.
I think I want to like touch upon one point about that, because I think what you're saying is correct. Like, you have to be vulnerable with someone, but I think she's also mentioned you have to choose carefully who you're vulnerable with.
Yes. They have to have a right to your story.
Right. Like, and I think that's why you and I are such great friends, because I can come to you with my shittiest stories and you will put the kibosh on it and be like, no, this is not reality. And I know you're not going to sit there and make me feel ashamed of myself. And in fact, more often than not, you have a story that's similar and you're like, okay, like, you're not alone.
Yeah. I don't think there's a lot of stories that I have not been through that anybody could come to me with and be like, and I'd be like, ooh.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain people I'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to share that story with them, because I already know that there's going to be admonishment and shame and condescending, and I've already done that to myself. I don't need it from an outside party. Not that I need someone to say what you did was okay. I just need someone to hear it and help me work through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I think that finding the tools, and again, Brene might not be for everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? She might not be like everyone's cup of tea. It is funny how many, even of my guy friends, as of late, have like mentioned this book.
Yeah.
Which is funny. One of them's in the middle of a divorce. Like, you know what I mean? Some people, and I'm like, you're reading that?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, that is so, I like love it. I get goosies.
Yeah.
From
and
it.
It's funny. I read The Gifts of Imperfection. I was like, eh. But that book, like, as soon as I read the introduction, I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
Like, I was constantly reading it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's been, and I read it a long time ago, and when I was doing some of her classes, and so when we started like talking about it and wanting to do it here on the podcast, I picked it up again, and and you usually get what you need at the time that you need it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's something that happens, and so I have found again a whole nother level that I can go to with this stuff, you know?
So I feel like you've done the reckoning, you've done a little bit of the rumble in 2018, and this is like, I think 2019 is the year of like our revolution.
Yeah, I think I did. I think we talked about this. Like, I don't like New Year's resolutions. I think they're stupid. And I think it sets people up for failure, you know? And I think that you and I talked about this, is that like I picked a word for 2019. You know, I mean, I picked a word for it. Like, and I was like, okay, this is where I want to live for. And of course, my word is love. And, you know, I'm ready. I'm more ready than I've ever been. Again, and I don't ever want to be like the girl who's always seeking like the boyfriend, because I don't think I've ever really operated from that place.
Yeah.
I have learned something from every single person that I've been involved with. Like, every single relationship that I've been involved with, I have learned something. Some of it is what I don't really want.
Yeah.
And some of it is more about who I want to come and who I want to show up as.
Yeah.
And I feel like I am coming closer and closer to be able to give the best version of myself than I ever have been.
Yeah. I think you are too.
And that's powerful. Totally right. Like, yeah. So I can just operate from such a place that's like different than I probably ever have been.
I don't know.
And in my 40s, I didn't know that would be the case, you know?
I think my word, I've been thinking about this a lot, because I know you said your word was love, and I like it too, but...
And then, wait, I just want to clarify, my word love is not necessarily just romantic love.
Right.
It's not.
Like self-love, like love with your kids, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my word is transparency, because I think for the longest time, and I think I put this on my Instagram page at one point, is that, you know, I post a lot of pictures of me being strong because that's how I want to be seen. And really, I probably need to admit my failures a little bit more often. And I think by doing that, I'll probably connect better with people.
Well, and maybe even better to yourself, because
Yeah.
he talks about in there. And I think did I even write the quote? I think the quote that we're going to even end with is talking about that. Is like, it's like and I can't even paraphrase it right now, but she talks about that profoundly too. Is that like our failures aren't like embarrassing. Like our failures shouldn't be like something that like we hide from.
Right. Yeah.
Because really, everybody has them.
Right. And I think by being transparent, like I think I just need to put who I am and what I believe in and what I want and need, from my kids, from my parents, from like future relationships and stuff. I think that it's going to propel me forward, because then I won't get sucked into this settling for someone else's happiness and my own.
It's funny. It's like, so after all that cheese platter scattering happened, the clearing of my heart all happened, like, right there. It was really right at Christmas. It was like the weekend before Christmas.
Yeah.
I made a commitment to myself to go kind of quiet on social media. And I just, because I was very similar to the attention seeking that I would look for God. Like, I found myself like just getting caught up in the attention. I found myself getting caught up, like waiting for that person to like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like waiting for that person to like it, waiting for that comment, like, waiting for that
The like
from that one.
He liked my post.
Yeah, and then like, oh God, what does that mean? And I just found myself, and I was like, you know what? I'm like, it was so distracting, and I was like, if I really want to do what I want to do, like, I just need to be quiet, and that's kind of what I've been doing, and it's been kind of nice.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize how much it kind of like bogs down my psyche and my spirit and like who I am. But then I also got a dog, so I have a dog now, and I think she's saving me just as much as like we're saving her. She came from a rescue and stuff, and I walk her now a couple times a day, and it's like the fresh air and the quiet, and like that for me is where I get my centering. Like I read a meditation before I take her for a walk every morning, and I like that's where I like talk to God and my brother and like my dad and stuff like that. All my spirits and my angels. I talk to them, and with the stars out in the middle of the morning. Of course, it's like 4:15 in the morning, but you know what I mean. We got our walk, and so I don't know. Like I think that those kind of like those little shifts and those little activities, which might seem like little, can really make a difference.
Yeah, those are actually the moments where I talk to God too. It's usually when I'm out walking the dogs, because I don't know what it is. My problem is like I know some people can pray and like not move their lips, but I actually have to I have to speak and hear it in order to pray. So I usually walk the dogs. Which I was told by a friend of mine that's in the Urban Dictionary, and walking the dogs actually means something completely else.
Oh, what does it mean? Does it mean like the
It means like jerking off.
Oh, it does? Walking the dogs? Walking the dogs means that?
Yeah.
I would never. How would that even be the reference?
I don't know. But I told this friend that I was walking the dogs, and they were like, "You should probably look that up in the Urban Dictionary." And
All right, we'll have to. That's homework. We'll look at that. We'll talk about that in episode 15. Walking the dogs in the Urban Dictionary.
Self-love and walking the dogs.
It's a whole another self-love. Oh my God. Well, good. Is there anything else that we probably should?
I don't know. I think that was like a really good. That was a really good episode.
That was good. So now we're at. I don't even know where we're at as far as how hot it is in here, but the infrared sauna is definitely. We might have to record from here more often.
I know.
It's actually fantastic. All right, so we're gonna end with our quote that we always like to end with. Okay, so this is a new one. So this is from Brene, from the book. If you don't have it, get it. I just was talking to one of my girlfriends today, and she was telling me that if you have a public library card, you can actually like rent books, audiobooks that can come to your phone. So she was checking to see if Rising Strong was one of them. So if you don't have it, if you don't know, if you don't do anything else, watch Brene's TED Talk. Like watch her TED Talk on vulnerability. It is just everybody in the world needs to read it.
You will like her instantly.
Yeah, she's great, and she's from Texas. Okay, so owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risking, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. The experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light.